Conflict and change in the Middle East after World War II. As you can tell from this slide, we are talking about the area in North Africa going into southern Asia. Turkey, of course, Israel, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, that whole area there you can see on the map. Now, this area had many different ethnic and religious differences. You had Jews versus Muslims, the Jews that were moving into Israel, in all the area countries, which were predominantly Muslim. There was a Christian population in them, though. Then, of course, they discovered natural resources, aka oil. When they discovered oil, that's when everything changed, because oil means money and power. And we know that everyone loves money and power. So when the oil was discovered and it really became in high demand during World War II and after World War II, many countries wanted to control that oil. Now, you also had different government styles. You had the democratic government in Israel, and of course you had the Islamic traditional governments surrounding Israel, most of which are ruled by either a dictator or a monarchy run through the Muslim tradition. Many of them did not have pro-Western feelings. Some of them didn't mind Western European and the United States, but some countries were not very fond of us at all. Now you can see on the map that the Middle East has always been the crossroad for people and trade and cultural diffusion, even back to the Crusades. You have a rich diversity of people, customs, religion. This is where the first, silks made it into Europe. The first spices made it into Europe. And so this has always been a hot area for control, because if you controlled this area, you controlled the trade. Okay, with the discovery of power of oil, this leads to a major power struggle going on. Now, after World War II, there were hundreds of thousands of Jews that had nowhere to go. America took some, Australia took some, Great Britain took some, Canada took some, but over hundreds, thousands had nowhere to go. So, it is decided through the United Nations that a country named Israel would be created, a Jewish state. Now, that area is in what we call Israel today, which is their holy land. You might remember the idea of Zionism we talked about before World War I. That whole idea of the Jews need their own home state, their own country where they feel safe and secure. Well, this is finally coming to fruition. This is finally happening after World War II. So, Great Britain controlled the area of Palestine on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. They can no longer take care of it anyway. After World War II, they are incredibly weak. The economy's not good. They have to rebuild. And so they decide to basically give it up and let's create two independent countries or states in this area. The Jewish state of Israel and the Arab state known as Palestine. And you can see the original lines up there on the map in the corner, with Palestine would be yellow and the Jewish state of Israel would be orange. Now, as you can imagine, this led to major wars because the Palestinians had to leave all the areas that were now Jewish owned, and they were not ready to do that. They had been living there for hundreds of years. They did not want to move, and so a lot of this was done without the common Palestinians' knowledge or understanding. They were just told, you got to move. This leads to a series of Palestinian and Arab-Israeli wars. The Palestine and Arab nations vowed to drive out the Jews. Israel gains the land with the help of the U.S. The Arab Palestinians face discrimination and poverty. That's still an issue today. The area of Palestine is literally the #1 area in the world today for refugees, because all the people who live in the Palestinian area are considered refugees because they do not have a homeland. There is no country that will accept them. So there is still, even today, many problems with this. Now, back in the 1970s, in 60s, the PLO was started, or the Palestine Liberation Organization, and it was led by Yasser Arafat. That's the guy there with the white and black checkered hat on. They used terrorist tactics and fight a guerrilla war against the people of Israel. They were considered terrorists and still are considered terrorists, and they just fought to get Israel out of Palestine. Now, Israel was not going anywhere. At this point, the Israelis, the first thing they did when they move to Israel was create an army. They have a very strong army, one of the strongest in the world, and they use a lot of high-tech weapons. Other Arab nations soon fought Israel, including Egypt and Syria. Now, Egypt would eventually seek peace through the Camp David Accords, and these would be held to end the war. And you can see there you've got Jimmy Carter with the Israeli and Egyptian right there together, and then you can see Barack Obama with the Israeli leader and Palestinian leader there, and they're attempting peace. Even today, there is no peace in this area when it comes to Israel and its neighbors. They still have conflict. The people of Israel, unfortunately, are in a constant state of war. There's a lot of propaganda involved with this, as you can see. Here's a sign that says, "Real Americans defend Israel." And then here's one comparing the people of Palestine with the apartheid of South Africa, because they do unfortunately live in similar circumstances. They have curfews. They can't go to certain areas of the city. Their water is all on the Jewish side. So if Israel does not, if the Palestinians or some people start trouble, all Israel has to do is turn off the water and they can literally shut down the camps. So it's not a good situation. This was recently just in the news in 2015 with the leader of Israel coming forward for re-election, stating he would not allow there to be a two-nation problem solved, basically, that let Palestine be its own independent nation and let Israel be its own independent nation. He came forward and said Palestine will never have its own area, will never be an independent nation, and right before the election, to guarantee he win the election as Israeli prime minister. So this is still very much a hot button issue in America today and the world. Okay, in the 1970s, Iran was ruled by a guy named Reza Pahlavi. Okay, he was basically the Shah or leader of Iran in the 1960s. And we put him there. The United States put him there. He was a puppet for us, and he westernized the country, allowed for education, women could have jobs, and it was a westernized dictatorship. Many people in Iran did not like this. They felt it was too anti-Muslim. There were many Muslims in Iran. There still are today. There was not, any anti-Iranian movement or Muslim movement there. But in the 70s, 1979 to be exact, the Ayatollah Khomeini led a revolution. They wanted to kick the Shah out of Iran and make it basically a Islamic-run country. The rules, the government, everything is based on, word for word, the Quran. And that happened in 1979, and it's still run that way today. We call that the Iranian Revolution. The Shah fled Iran in 1979. Soon afterward, Ayatollah Khomeini returned and declared Iran an Islamic Republic. And you can see Iran there on the map. It's smack dab in the middle of the Middle East, and it's a very large country. Today, nations are concerned over the growth of Iran's nuclear program under President Ahmadinejad. Now, Ahmadinejad is no longer president, but he still basically runs the country. They had a term limit, so he stepped down. Some other guy's running the country right now, but he's telling that guy what to do. So when you see the words Ahmadinejad on the regents, he is the leader of Iran. Okay? So, and you can see there, Iran desperately wants nuclear. They say they want nuclear power. That's all they're going to use it for, is for nuclear power. Israel and other countries are very nervous about this because Iran has been very public with letting people know that they want to blow Israel and the United States off the planet. They have been very loud about that. They have been very pressured with that, letting people know we don't believe that Israel deserves to live and we want to blow it literally off the planet. Okay. The impact of the Iranian Revolution. New Iranian government was hostile to the West. They banned basically anything from America or from Europe was banned, and the government required Muslim traditions, Islamic law, which basically rights were taken from women. You can see there in the pictures that the woman on the right with the makeup and the longer hair, that is a newscaster in 1979, before the Iranian Revolution. The other three women in the pictures are newscasters over time, and the last one that is fully dressed in black is the most up-to-date newscaster. And you could see that the women are fully covered. There is no makeup allowed. You can't see their hair, so that's part of the Islamic tradition there. In the 1970s, they also had the Iranian hostage situation, where they took some Americans hostage, and they threatened to not give them back. Unfortunately, fortunately, they were given back in 1980 when President Ronald Reagan, literally the day that he was inaugurated, they released the hostages because they were afraid of Reagan, because he said he was going to bomb the country to get our people back. And then Iran encourages other countries to establish Islamic republics, which is also one of the reasons why in that whole area today we have a lot of terrorism going on in the Middle East, all the way from Al-Qaeda to the ISIL that we talk about later on. Iran's a big proponent of doing whatever you have to do to destroy the West, including terrorism. Islamic fundamentalism. A fundamentalist, guys, is anybody who goes to the pure fundamentals of a religion, of a government, just the basics. They add nothing to it. Beginning in the 1970s, many Muslims opposed westernization and wanted to apply Islamic principles to the problems of their nations. And this brought in a whole lot of Islamic fundamentalism, which did not allow for democracy, no freedoms, no women's rights, and things of that nature. In the 1980s, we had the Iran-Iraq War, which Saddam Hussein's forces in Iraq seized control of an area of Iran. War broke out. We got involved, the United States, and this was in the 1980s, and were able to help Iraq win. Now, later, fast forward to the 1990s, this is going to happen again, actually 2 more times, with Iraq War 1 and 2, both run by George Bush Sr. and then George Bush Jr., where Iraq will be invaded, and we will go after them because they are harboring terrorists and big weapons. In the end, we just want the oil, because Iraq is a very oil-rich country. Even today, the oil is constantly being burned. You can see in the picture there in the background and the bottom how they burn up the oil fields. Anytime that we get involved with things, especially in Iraq, it's been for the oil.